Yeah.
I used to do this. I used to do that.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday, December 16th of the year 2020 emergency called meeting agenda. If you will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You'll please stay standing and bow your heads for the invocation. Lord, you have brought us here today to again make decisions for our children, our teachers, our staff, and our county. Please help us make wise decisions, careful decisions, and thoughtful decisions. We're blessed to have your guidance, and we're blessed to have you in our lives. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Now may I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved.
Mr.
Second.
McLean,
Second.
Mr. Goodwin, Reverend Goodwin seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 It's unanimous. Dr. Jackson?
Good afternoon, board members. Thank you very much for your willingness to give up your time, especially on short notice for an emergency called meeting for the purpose of considering our school calendar. Certainly a part of that timeliness was understanding that our students and staff are about to begin their winter break, and if there are any changes to be made, we certainly want to allow them to know as early as possible what those changes might be. As you're very aware, this year has presented unprecedented challenges. That's certainly a cliche to say in this moment, but it's absolutely true. Every single protocol and process in our school system has had to be radically changed. It's a testament to the incredible men and women who serve the children of Carteret counties, who serve the families of Carteret County, who serve the community of Carteret County, that we've been able to effect those changes and keep our students and staff safe and healthy. It's a testament to their conscientiousness that they've maintained all of the processes we put in place at the end of July, and we've moved forward here to December, having done so well. As context, as you recall, our school system has had to operate under the guidance from three areas, all of it informed by guidance from the Centers of Disease Control, the CDC. The guidance documents, first from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, the Strong Schools North Carolina document, from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, the Lighting Our Way Forward document, and then, of course, our governor, through his executive orders, have guided our work and have required the work that we've done and dictated much of the work that we've had to do. In the summer, the governor required that all public school systems create three plans, Plan A, B, and C. Plan C is remote learning, where all students learn remotely. And certainly that's what we were doing from the moment on March 14th when the governor made the announcement that schools would be closed for 2 weeks at that time and have remained in some form of closure since. Plan B, which is a hybrid model where we could have students face-to-face only to the number that we could have in the building and still maintain 6 feet of social distance. And then Plan A, which allows for minimal social distance while still following all of the protocols as required by the guidance documents. We brought together just over 70 staff members representing all of our employee groups from across the school system who created those three plans, and in a very long, comprehensive meeting, the Board of Education approved those plans, and we appreciate that. Part of our planning in the summer was the understanding that we would have to be nimble, that there would be time when we might have to move from one plan to another based on the setting and context and what was happening at that time. As you'll recall, we started our school year with all of our schools on Plan B, or that hybrid model. Cohorts A and B, with our students attending 2 days a week face-to-face. If they chose to, parents always had the option and do have the option to have their children attend 100% virtually or remote learning. and then 3 days a week for all students remotely. So 2 days face-to-face, 3 days remote. In October, the governor gave the Board of Education the opportunity to move our elementary schools to Plan A. The board carefully considered that opportunity and did allow our elementary schools to go to Plan A, and we did go to Plan A, and our elementary schools have been operating 5 days a week. We're one of the few school systems who've had as much face-to-face instruction available for our students. And again, I think that's a testament to our staff members and to our community who've worked so hard to make that so successful. I do feel like we've been very successful to this point and anticipate being very successful going forward. We certainly look forward to the moment when all of our students can attend face-to-face full-time. And certainly I know that that's something we look forward to happening as soon as possible. As we began this school year, one of our priorities, and it certainly predates my tenure as your superintendent, was transparency and great communication. And so from the first week we opened school, we've been communicating with parents weekly through our school system website to give the numbers of school-affected cases. When there's a case where someone might have been in the school and then later tested positive, we call that a school-affected case. When that happens, we contact all of the parents in the classroom or on the bus or on the ball team, depending on the situation, to let them know that there was a case in that classroom, on that bus, or on that ball team, and that they would be contacted if their child needed to be quarantined because they were a close contact. Close contact is defined as being within 6 feet for a cumulative 15 minutes in any 24-hour period. Beyond that level 1 communication, we also communicate with the entire school anytime there's a case, so all parents are aware of that. And then at the third level, the district sends out the weekly information, or we place it each week. And so on the screen you see, and I apologize, they're a little smaller on the screen, but these two documents are on our school system website under the COVID-19 tab. The one to the left is simply the communication protocol that we've been sharing since the beginning of the year. The one to the right is the most recent numbers, and you'll see it lists the number of students, the number of staff members, the number of school-affected cases, and then a percentage, so we can maintain and track that. As we look at our school year to date, you'll notice that, and this includes this week as of about 15 minutes ago. And so as you look at our school year to date, we've had 18 weeks that we've reported. 6 of those weeks, we've either had 1 case or 0 cases. So a third of the time, we've had 1 or 0 cases in our school, and we certainly very much appreciate that. However, we were told to expect, and we were from the health department, and let me pause for a moment and share how much I appreciate the Carteret County Health Department, particularly Health Director Stephanie Cannon and her staff. They have been absolutely amazing to work with, as Mr. Probst, our Assistant Superintendent, who does the lion's share of this work, has been in constant contact with them and with our school nurses, particularly as we work through our contact tracing and determine who may need to be quarantined. We were told to expect a spike in cases as we went through the Thanksgiving holiday. And so if I place on the screen Thanksgiving, November 26th, and we look across this graph, you'll see that we did have that spike. The week after Thanksgiving, we jumped to 7 cases, which is a high number compared to our school year. The second week past Thanksgiving, you'll notice we jumped to 21 cases. This week, as of just a few moments ago, still with Thursday and Friday to go, we're already at 10 cases. And so we've seen that spike post-Thanksgiving. We've been told to expect a similar or greater spike following the winter holidays, when we'll be out of school for just over 2 weeks. This is our January calendar as approved by the Board of Education. January 1st and January 18th are holidays for New Year's Day, and then of course for the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday. His birthday is on the 18th. So we have those 2 holidays in that purplish mauve color there. The 4th and 5th are teacher work days. And so our first day back for students is scheduled to be January 6th. In thinking about the spike, if we look at the Thanksgiving spike that we had, potentially as we came back, assuming that there was the opportunity throughout that holiday break, the week of the 6th and the week of the 11th would be the weeks where we would see the spike if we simply move the Thanksgiving spike ahead following the winter holidays. And so, board members, as allowed by the governor in terms of the 3 plans that we're directed to complete, after talking with our principals and cabinet staff, working with the health director and our school nurses, it is my recommendation that the school system move to 100% remote learning as we return to school that week of January 6th through the 15th, and then return to learning as we have been, Plan A for elementary schools, Plan B for middle and high schools on January 19th. So as we look back, I apologize, to the calendar. There we go. Again, the 6th, 7th, 8th, and then that week of the 11th, I'm proposing would be remote learning days for all of our students. And then we would return to our current learning plan on January 19th. Be happy to answer any questions the board might have, Mr. Chair.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. And before we begin, there's no right or wrong answers here. This is just a situation we're in. And so we respect everything that was discussed. So if anybody has any questions, please, Dr. Jackson's here for you.
Dr. Jackson, we have I guess a different number of cases, and we have spikes, and I guess our having to quarantine. Those is different from school to school. Are we seeing that some schools are way better, are doing having a worse problem with than other schools?
And I appreciate you mentioning the quarantining. The quarantining certainly is part of what causes the impact, because if someone is a close contact, they have to quarantine. And part of the logistical challenges is when we have staff members quarantined, then we have to, of course, staff the school. We have seen different numbers of cases per school. I don't know that that is indicative of somehow operating differently within the school, but maybe a reflection of the families being served. And I don't really want to say that. So I don't know that I could say we see any sort of trend that it's better in one place or worse than the other. The numbers are different from school to school, but I think that probably holds true across the community.
Dr. Jackson, several times yesterday, you used the word breaking point. Would you talk about that a little more? Because I think it figures into our decision making.
Thank you, sir. One of the things that we certainly have encountered this year is that our substitute pool is significantly diminished, as a large number of our substitutes have chosen not to work as substitutes this year. I believe our Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Probe, said we're running with approximately 20% of the substitutes we typically would have. When we have staff members who are required to quarantine as a close contact, then that staff member is not available. We don't have the number of substitutes we normally would have. And so what that requires is shifting within the building to have other staff members be able to instruct the students who are there in the building. It's particularly exasperated when we have a teacher assistant, for example, who may also drive a school bus. And so we wind up with not having the school bus drivers we have, and so we have to run multiple routes. And so we have been able to work through the year, and really, to the credit of our staff, have made it through. The post-Thanksgiving spike really strained us almost to the breaking point in terms of our capacity to continue to move forward based on the number of staff members that we're having to quarantine. And so at this moment, I can absolutely assure you that we have kept our students safe and healthy and maintained all of our processes and protocols. I appreciate the board considering this proposal as a way to continue to ensure that we're doing all we can for our students and staff.
Dr. Jackson, after Thanksgiving, we had school immediately after that holiday weekend, when we had all our families, a lot of our families together, spending time together as we would expect. There's a lot longer period of time from Christmas. Granted, people are going to be hanging out and still being with their families after Christmas. How many days, we can't say for certain. But could it be reasonable to look and say, well, we'll go virtual till, let's say, till the 11th, and monitor the cases. Keep the other week, that 11th through the 15th, keep that a tentative based on how things are looking, and not necessarily commit right now to saying, oh, we got to go ahead and go virtual all the way till the 19th, but go ahead and give a few days, a little bit more of a buffer. So really we'd have all the way till the 11th before we're having to come back to school face to face and see how things are going.
Absolutely. I do think that that's something for the board to consider and would be a possibility. Certainly in that consideration, one of the things that I would offer is that for our teachers, knowing what's coming as much as possible makes it much easier. And also for our families, I know that one of the difficulties in this is any time that our students aren't able to come face to face, then our families have to make sure that their children are being taken care of and moving forward with their learning as well. And so for the planning purposes of the families and for the planning purposes of our teachers and instructors, if we knew ahead of time we're going to be out X number of days and we could plan for that, that's certainly easier. Granted, it is a moving target because we've certainly encountered many things we didn't expect as we've gone through the year. You mentioned that Thanksgiving we came back very quickly, and you're exactly right. Thanksgiving is typically on a Thursday, and we would assume, and it is just an assumption, most folks celebrate Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving Day. With the winter holiday break, we have multiple holidays with Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and New Year's as well. And so really pinpointing where celebrations are, we might make assumptions of where those are, but I don't know that we could say with any certainty. And so the thought of utilizing the 6th through the 15th as remote learning days is simply an exercise, or at least a proposal to exercise caution and really to try to make sure that when we come back, we're post that spike and we're able to continue going forward without having to make further changes until we're allowed to go full time for all of our students, I hope.
And those parents that you mentioned, the families who are having to look at the possibility of having childcare or planning and figuring out what they're going to do about work and so forth, those are the ones that I'm really thinking about. And I bet you that they would much prefer to be on call, have at least hope that we're good to go and we could keep having the face-to-face learning, because not only do our parents need it, our kids have already been disadvantaged enough with the amount of remote learning they've been made to do. And so it would seem like a lot of people would appreciate at least the opportunity to be able to have that as that face-to-face learning week, the 11th through the 15th, as an option, unless stuff goes crazy. If stuff goes crazy, all right. I mean, they're on notice that, look, if we have to pull the plug, we have to pull the plug if stuff goes off the roof, but I don't want to necessarily, assume that.
I would not support that for a couple reasons. First of all, I think it's safe to say that the New Year's Eve, a lot of people are going to be gathered together. And if it does spike, it's going to spike when people are out of school. In the planning piece, those parents, and look, this is a horrible decision for all of us because of childcare, single parents, all that. But I think we have to give them as much time as possible to make those arrangements. And also for our teachers. I mean, it's not as easy as just flipping the switch on virtual learning. I mean, we've gotten good at it, but I think we need to consider what we're putting our teachers through as well as our families. So I would not consider setting a date and then tentatively moving it. I think we set, I think we set one and go with it.
I'll admit that yesterday when we discussed this plan, I wasn't completely for it. But looking at the 1st being on a Friday and the 15th being on a Friday, and then we're already off on the 18th, to me, after looking over numerous things and talking with several people, for me, it makes sense. I know it's a week and I know it's really difficult, and I do hate that for parents. But I would rather push it back and us be really safe and be able to get back to school full time than for us to kind of push it so much that we're in a bigger mess, and then that we're not able to go back to school, because there's nothing that I want more than for them to be face to face. So that's kind of where I stand on that.
I feel like we're going to be putting a big burden on families, I'm sorry, and workers by saying we're going to go virtual until the 19th. There's lots of people that have everyday jobs that are not going to have childcare. And where does the food aspect come into play for all this?
Thank you for the question, Ms. Chadwick. And I'll take a moment just to put in a plug. On this Saturday, we actually have food distribution at each of our high schools from 11 to 2, I believe, Ms. Nance. And we certainly are very appreciative to our child nutrition staff who've been doing that work ahead of time so that we can do that. As you know, our school system has been dedicated to feeding hungry children since this began back in mid-March. And so I had the opportunity to briefly have a conversation with our child nutrition director, and should the board go forward, we will have plans for food distribution for our students because we certainly want to make sure that our children aren't hungry. I can't tell you what those plans are yet. Those haven't been detailed, but we will have plans to feed.
Right, but unless we're going to run buses every day, having food in Smyrna for children in Cedar Island or children in Harkers Island, that's not really going to work. I mean, it sounds like it's going to work, but unless a bus is going to go with food, I mean, that's not. And we're looking at a month being out of school if we would go till the 19th. It's over 4 weeks. And well, I was going to say that people are going to quit traveling on the 1st if their back to school time is not until the 19th. I mean, I'm not sure, we're just kicking the can down the road a little bit on are we really, are people going to stay home and do what they're supposed to do?
I think there's always a chance that we're going to do this and then still see a post-holiday spike. But I think if we do this, we do have a rare opportunity to make a safety bubble, mainly for the teachers. They're the ones really being affected. And if we take this chance and it saves one kid or one family, then I think it was worth it. And I think it's a tough decision, but I think if we're going to only do 1 week, then there's really no point. We'll just deal with the spike when it hits. But you've got to take 2 full weeks from that January 1st date. December 31st is the most traveled day of the year. And I think we have to acknowledge that and go out from there.
All right, any other thoughts, ideas, discussions for Dr. Jackson?
Yeah, one. There's a lot about the pandemic I don't understand, but I can read the numbers in front of me. Confirmed cases of employees since August, elementary 33, which is the same group that we're talking about not having face-to-face instruction, but still having instruction, albeit virtual. They talk about a herd immunity. Well, out of the number of employees who work at elementary schools, we're not reaching that number from what I know. And I keep coming back to breaking point. You got my attention yesterday, and I suspect most of the breaking point is in the elementary schools, though I don't remember that being a part of it. It's, I know I'm a pastor, but there's only one way to say this. We're damned if we do, damned if we don't. If we protect our employees, we're making it more difficult for the parents with childcare. If we make it convenient for the parents, we're making it more difficult for our employees. That is not an answer, it's just a statement of fact. As I look at 14 days after January 1st, someone's always said that puts us to January the 15th. Is 14 days magic? It is not. It is a break. It's a chance to get our numbers back in line. So I'm leaning toward the 19th.
Dr. Jackson, as Dennis mentioned, the elementary schools are the ones who have the toughest time with the virtual learning. What kind of progress have we made with doing a better job of virtual learning, be it like, for example, synchronous learning for these students that are the younger students who really, really need some face-to-face time. Even face-to-face over a computer, it probably is better than nothing at all, and just get them getting assigned assignments and parents having to step in and teach the kids. So what kind of progress? Are we getting better? Are we doing a lot more with the synchronous?
So the question about are we getting better, I think the answer is absolutely. Our teachers and administrators, our professional staff have continued to engage in professional development since the beginning of the year, particularly around online teaching and learning, understanding learning management systems, understanding the tools that are available, working with our students to help them understand. Unlike the beginning of the year for some of our students, or even going back to March, we didn't have the opportunity to teach the children how to use the tools before they had to start using them, because on Friday, March 12th, we thought they were coming back to school on March 17th, on Monday, and that didn't happen. In this case, our students have had the opportunity, those who've been face-to-face, to be in the classroom, for the teachers to instruct them on how to use the tools. And so I do believe that we're doing a much better job, and we'll continue to get better, because I do believe that remote learning in some form or fashion will be a part of public education going forward post-pandemic. In terms of synchronous learning, we have worked towards rolling that out, particularly in our middle schools and high schools that have continued to operate under Plan B. As you know, the board's not had the opportunity to move the middle schools and high schools to Plan A because the governor hasn't allowed that as of yet, and we're looking forward to that happening. And so we do have examples of synchronous learning. Moving into second semester, we're looking forward to more of our teachers being able to utilize synchronous learning. For the elementary schools, prior to going to Plan A, we did have some elementary teachers, particularly at one school, who were using synchronous learning. And so we do have some exemplars of being able to use synchronous learning. I can't say that we're ready to roll out synchronous learning in every elementary classroom. It continues to be a process, and we continue to work our way forward and to improve each day. And we are doing that. And I just appreciate the work of our teachers and staff who are not only teaching today, but they're continuing to grow their skills to be prepared for what tomorrow will bring.
And I continue to remain worried that our efforts to minimize cases is doing more damage than good when it comes to the others, the negative effects on our kids. So that's my take on it.
Mr. Chair, understanding that this does put a lot of pressure on families, but understanding, to use Dr. Jackson's words, that our system is potentially at a breaking point with cases, with 80% of our substitute pool unavailable, with bus drivers continually being an issue, case counts rising. I'll make the motion to approve the revised calendar as presented, which would put us all virtual through January 15th.
I've got one question.
Okay, there's a
Sorry.
motion. We have to do a second and then discussion.
Okay.
Sorry.
Second.
Mr. McLean has made the motion. Reverend Goodwin has made the second.
Okay, so if this passes, is there a possibility that we can get buses on the road on the 6th to feed children? If it's just 2 days a week?
Absolutely. In terms of yes, ma'am, there is that possibility. There's not been any planning around that. Part of that will be not only child nutrition spinning that up, working with transportation. Of course, Mr. Paler works in those two areas. But also, I want to come to an understanding for myself of how the buses were used at the end of last school year in this school system. We did use the buses where I served, and so that worked really well. And so that is a possibility. That work has to be done.
Did you say just for
No, I'm saying if it could start on the 6th
2
and
days a
then
week?
like 2 days a week, or, so then maybe they run them on the 6th and then on the 8th, and then they pick 2 days the following week. After being out, I don't feel like we can leave kids trying to figure out where they're going to come get their lunch
Yes, ma'am.
without buses, supplying the food.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you, Catherine. So we've got a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5 for and 2 against.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made to adjourn by Mr. McLean. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second by Ms. Chadwick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank y'all.
Okay.